Hello and welcome back to another video. I'm Zelk, and today we are talking about ranged weapons in Ark. Not all the weapons, because I have not unlocked the Scorched Earth. We also do not have tech weapons, but in general there's still a lot to look at on the island, and I have pretty much every single weapon besides the tech weapon. So over here I have a list from Wiki, and it shows you all the ranged weapons. We have the slingshot, the boomerang because it's on Scorched Earth. We don't have it. We have the bola, the whip, it's on Scorched Earth, so we don't have it. The bow, the crossbow, the compound bow, the harpoon launcher, simple pistol, long net, shotgun, fabricated pistol, pump action shotgun, the assault rifle, the fabricated sniper rifle. We don't have the flamethrower because again, Scorched Earth, and we don't have this one. It's aberration, and of course we don't have the tech weapons as well. So we are limited to these weapons, and I've already crafted all of them. You can see it in my inventory and also on my hotkeys, and we're going to talk about it one by one. Now in this game you can actually craft a dummy, a training dummy, and this thing seems to only work for melee weapons. So if you see, I have a club here, so if I equip the club and I hit it, you can see 1 damage, and I can spam on it, and later it's going to tell me the amount of DPS I've done. DPS stands for damage over time, so the higher the DPS, the more damage you did per second, which is better. And you can see if I were to use, let's say, a sword, in this case, so 31, 31, and then after that it's going to showcase the DPS, which is 44 damage per second. Now the problem with the dummy is that although it's so good, like over here if I have a spear, poking it will give me the DPS as usual. The problem is, if I were to try to use range attack on the dummy, it comes out 0, and I don't really know why this is. So it works, as in it doesn't work on all range weapon. So you can see it's 0. If I use a bow, well, it's 0. If I use a gun, so yeah, nothing pops out at all. There's not even a 0. So we can't use this to measure DPS with ranged weapon. And to be honest, I'm not going to talk about DPS with the ranged weapon, simply because in order to do so you need to have the fire rate, you need to have the reload speed. Technically with these 2 values and the damage per bullet, we could come up with a DPS already. Otherwise, if you want to do it manually, we need to have like a stopwatch next to us and calculate like the amount of shots we can do within a certain period of time and how many times we reload, and put everything in together. But I'm not going to do that because my game is slightly laggy, and I don't think you know, even with stopwatch and all that, it's going to be that accurate. So maybe we'll wait a while. Maybe the game developers might actually release, like, you know, the reload speed, the fire rate of each individual weapon, and then that would be really good. So meanwhile, we're just going to talk about how it feels, and my thoughts of each gun, and probably which one I'll use it as like my go-to gun, and then in what situation I think it's good for PvP, and in what situation I think it's good for PvE. So over here we have Babe, and he's actually going to be our sacrifice. So let's pull him all the way over here, if you don't mind. I'm so sorry. Okay, the reason why we're using Babe is because he has the highest health pool among all the other tames that I have, and his health pool is about almost 6k now. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to options. We're going to unclaim him so that when we shoot him we can actually see damage values. Otherwise, if he's a friendly, for example, let me use something weaker. For example, if I were to shoot him, you don't see any damage value. You only see that, oh, he got hit. So now that he is sort of like not with us, when we shoot him, you can actually see damage value popping out from him, right? So like that, you can actually see 25. However, the amount of damage is not important here. I'm actually kind of worried that the others might attack. Let me put them all on passive. Okay, so the amount of damage is not that important because he has his saddle, he has armor reduction. Each individual creature in Arc also has some kind of damage resistance, so you find that when you attack certain creature it does more damage and some just does less damage. So we're not trying to look at the damage per se, but we are going to use him for certain exercises. So the first thing that we're going to look at is when it comes to damage, we'll probably use the wiki since they already have a given damage value. So like for example, the slingshot, it has a 14 damage. The torpidity actually less than double at 23.8 torpidity. And what's interesting about this is that you see that there's no DOT. DOT stands for damage over time, or I guess in this case, considering it's torpidity, it's like TOT, torpidity over time. I don't know. Anyway, so let's say if I use a slingshot, right, and I shoot him once. If I were to take out my magnifying glass and look, okay, you can actually see the torpidity just went down. It did not grow any further. So let me try that again. You have to do this like super fast because it heals so quick, right? So you can see it goes down super fast from what I can see, from 7 to 3 to 0. The thing is, there is no DOT, there is no torque applied over time, and that's very important because sometimes I feel like this happened to me before, is that the DOT is ticking, and the moment I release my next shot, the DOT actually knocked the creature down and I actually shoot it, lowering its taming effectiveness. So that is something you want to look out for. However, the slingshot does not have that. So obviously a slingshot is not that good. It's good for early game where you don't have narcotics, you don't have most of the basic taming stuff, and you just really want to knock something simple in order to get them to be your pet, you know, for utility wise and things like that. Probably not something that I'll be using for PvP or PvE. The next thing that we'll talk about is the bola. It does no damage, but it can cripple something. And when I say cripple, I mean hold them down completely, root them, I guess. I see the word here. And some dinos too, if they're not too big. So what this does is that in PvP, if someone is flying on a flyer, you can actually root down the flyer and they can't fly anymore. You can use it on players and then they cannot escape, giving you free hits. And overall, this is a really good thing to have in your inventory, especially in PvP, simply because there's this like trend thing that people like to do where they'll fly down, they'll pick you up, go really high and drop you from a height. So with the bola, you can kind of prevent yourself from being pulled all the way up if you throw it at the enemy early. And most flyers does work with the bola. Okay, the next one we have is the bow, and this is important, but you need to look over here because we will be talking about this very soon. It does only 55 damage with stone arrow, which is not a lot. The DOT from flame arrows, and we're not really going to talk about flame arrow because it's also more on scorched earth, and we don't have that, we haven't unlocked it. Now when it comes to the torpidity, you can see that it has 20 damage, and then after that 40 torpidity followed by 50 over 4 seconds. So there is sort of like a over time torque stacking up inside the creature when you use a trank arrow. So what this means is that if right now I were to use a bow and then I put in my trank arrows, all right, and then if I pull and I shoot him and very quickly come over here and take a look, you can see the torque actually goes up. Okay, and then after 4 seconds, it's like going back down because it's recovering from that torque. So the problem with this DOT is that yes, you can stack it up. So if you're shooting fast enough, the DOT kind of stacks and gets stronger and stronger. But at some point, it's gonna faint. And when that happens, you have to make sure that you're not shooting at it, because otherwise you are actually going to lose the taming effectiveness. So this is for the bow. Now when it comes to a crossbow, which is a better version of the bow in my opinion, in fact a crossbow is even better than a bow in certain ways in terms of utility, because the crossbow can use things like grappling hooks, and this is super important. For example, if there's a height that you want to try and reach that you cannot get into, using a grappling hook can help you to get in or to that particular height. if you get attacked by something that is flying, you can actually use the grappling hook to hook down the ground and pull yourself free. Another thing that you can also use for the grappling hook for is to attach it to players or mounts, and basically you can let them pull you or sometimes even pull them. So it's a super useful utility, and I recommend everyone to always have a crossbow with you just so they can use the grappling hook. But of course the crossbow is also good because it can use tranq arrows, its damage is decent, plus you can fire it underwater. Now there's not a lot of things that can be used underwater. The slingshot does not work underwater, the bola does not work, the bow does not work, compound bow does not work, harpoon does work, but it's still kind of slow in terms of the reload, plus the cost of each spare boats is kind of high, and it's not really effective to bring it up to the surface to use it. So therefore the harpoon launcher is actually not something that you probably want to carry around unless you want to tame something in the water or you want to kill something in the water. Then this one is really good. Otherwise you'll probably not be having it around. Pretty much all firearms does not work underwater as well. So therefore in our list right now, the only thing that works underwater is the crossbow and the harpoon. And that is also one of the reasons why the crossbow is so important to have throughout the game. Now if you look at the torpidity part, it's pretty much like double its initial, and then after that you have a higher DOT torpor for 4 seconds as well. So if you want to knock something bigger, this is definitely the way to go. And if you really look at the ratio between these two, it's pretty much the same. So therefore using a bow to knock something out and using a crossbow to knock something out is going to be the same, it's just that you use less arrows. However, by being able to do higher damage, this runs a risk of you accidentally killing the animal that you're taming. So sometimes what people like to do is they will shoot once with the crossbow and then they will wait for about 4 to 5 seconds so that all the torpidity is being used, and then you shoot the next shot to make sure that you are not overshooting or not over damaging the target. Now let's come over to the compound bow. The compound bow is a great bow. It's really strong. However, if you look in comparison with the same types of arrows that you use, the compound bow is actually weaker than crossbow. Like for example, if you are to use stone arrows, compound bow only does 55 damage, whilst the crossbow does 95 damage. So a lot better. If you look at the compound bow, it's actually the similar damage as you would get from a normal bow. The only main difference is that the compound bow can use metal arrows, and I guess his pullback time is a little bit faster. So this difference with the metal arrows actually does a great deal of damage. If I can find it, where is it? There it is at the back. So 202 damage with a metal arrow, and it's because of this the compound bow is probably by far one of the strongest weapon to be doing in long range. Now if you look back at the torpidity, again it is similar to the average bow, so it doesn't knock something out faster even though it's like a stronger bow or it takes a lot more materials to craft. In fact, among all the weapons, the range weapon that we've discussed so far, the compound bow is the only bow that actually requires a fabricator to make. So it's a little bit closer to the mid and end game weapon. Now if you pull out the page for the metal arrow, you can actually see its requirement to craft, and it is kind of expensive considering that you need cement paste, you need polymer, you need 3 ingots just to make a single arrow. And in my opinion, it's kind of on the expensive side. So for me to be carrying this around, especially in a PvP mode where you don't know when you'll actually die and lose everything, it's kind of risky to be bringing a compound bow. But if you are prepared, if let's say there's a place that you want to raid, you know what's over there, you can actually use the compound bow, shoot from a distance to kill enemies, dinos. Because the next weapon that actually does a lot of damage is probably going to be the shotgun series, and shotguns work well close range. The further you are more pellets might miss because the spread increases, and then you actually do even lesser damage. So therefore the compound bow is probably the best range damaging weapon, especially if it's stationary, because there is a curve with all the bow weapons, with all the arrow weapons. So that curvature and also the traveling speed will affect how accurate you are, and it's not really that good for moving target. So if you're dealing with moving targets like players, you probably want to go with things like firearms, which we'll talk in just a bit. But right now, let's take a look at the harpoon launcher. Now the harpoon launcher is great. You can see good amount of damage. You can see that if you were to use a trank spear, it does very little damage, but the torpor is a lot, right? It has 216 torpidity and then plus 90 over 4 seconds. So it's super good for taming water creature and also super good for damaging water creature. The reload on a harpoon launcher is also not that bad. Now the problem is, besides being really good in water, it's really bad on land. So I'm gonna demonstrate just a little bit. So here is the harpoon. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move back, right? I'm gonna try and shoot this guy, Babe, over here. Okay, I'm aiming. Okay, I'll aim a little bit higher. We're actually not really that far. As you can see, we're not really that far. So I'll aim a little bit higher and see what happens. I missed. Do you know why I missed? Because it went all the way down here. So you have to aim at a lot higher. Now this is not the only problem. So out of water, basically on land, the speed, the projectile actually dies off super fast. Can I pick it up? I want to pick it up because it's so expensive to make. There you go. It actually curves a lot sooner. If you do it in water, you can shoot really far and really fast, but on land it curves really quick. It also does not travel really far, so therefore its damage has also been decreased. So for example, if I aim higher, there you go, it's only 109. Now if I were to bring Babe into the water and shoot him, it's going to do a lot more damage. So in other words, you're not going to use this on land, which makes it a very limited use, and a lot of the things actually happen on land instead of the water. Okay, now we get into the firearms, the guns, right? So we start off with a simple pistol. Now a simple pistol is probably one of the better guns in the game. The reason why is because it shoots fast. The damage is also pretty high. You can hold up to 6 shots. And if you look over here, they actually have these damage per resource. Basically tells you like what is the ratio of you spending for the damage that you're dealing. So in other words, over here it says 200 damage for each ingot, and then about 300.33 damage for each gunpowder. So you're looking for higher values here, and the higher the value, the more, how do I say, efficient the weapon is in terms of spending your resource. Now because the simple pistol shoots really quickly, right, it's good for a certain situation. Like even though its damage output is not as high as something that shoots slower, the thing about this weapon is that it allows you to switch targets a lot faster. So let's say you're mobbed by a bunch of let's say Diplos, right? So having the ability to go from one Diplo to the other Diplo really quickly, and knowing that their health is really not that high, you can actually use this to fend off yourself really quickly. Or let's say Trudons, right? So you can actually kill a bunch of Trudons a lot faster. If you were to use something like the long neck that has a really long, by the way, the long neck looks like this, that has a really long reload time, which comes down to almost 3 to 4 seconds, then if there's a bunch of Trudons coming at you, you can only kill like one, and then you're probably gonna get hit a few times by the others before you can kill another one, and it's gonna wait even longer. So yeah, in those situations you don't really need that much damage per bullet. What you need is the ability, the flexibility to switch between targets quick when the moment you end one of it. So let's say even if it takes 2 shots to kill one, you can go for the next one and kill the other one and then kill the other one. So the pistol is a really good weapon. Now all firearm weapons does not seem to have the arc like arrow does. So there's no traveling speed. The bullet is instant. We call this hit scan in certain games. So basically where you aim and where you shoot is where the bullet is going to be instantly. This means that you can actually use the simple pistol to snipe, provided that you can actually see the target. You could snipe them as easy as that. Now let's go over to the long neck. Now the long neck is also really good. If you look over here, it says damage per resource. You can see that it's a lot higher than the simple pistol, about 80 higher for the damage, and for the gunpowder as well, about 13.3 more for the gunpowder. So you are having a very efficient use of your resources when you're using something like a long neck. The drawback is, as mentioned before, the long reload time, but if you have all the time in the world, if the dino is trapped, or if you're using this as a initial shot, that means, let's say if you're fighting against a player, it's a good idea to use the long neck to shoot him first, switch over to the pistol and finish him off. In my opinion, that might actually be the better course of action, simply because if the enemy do not know that you're there, you can have a huge damage for a surprise attack. Right, you can see that the damage done is almost 3 times the simple pistol. So to get 3 shots off and hit the target, you can actually just use a long neck and do that first, and then therefore follow up with a simple pistol. The other good thing about long necks is that they can use darts. It's not just the tranq darts, it works on all kinds of darts. It works on the poison, the shock darts, and yeah, basically all the darts. And there are no other guns that could do this. So this is pretty much the only gun that allows for darts. So therefore, it's almost a necessity to have a long neck, especially if you need it to tame, or even just to knock down a player in order to capture them. Now, although it doesn't show here, but the tranq darts also has a DOT on them. So this means that the moment you tranq a creature, it actually rank up in torpidity, and then after that, I think it's also about after 4 seconds it starts going down. So we can actually see this if I were to demonstrate it. So over here we have a long neck, we have our tranq darts loaded. Let me just double check and see if he is okay. He's almost done, because I just tested this. I'm just doing one for the recording. Okay, so if I were to shoot him and then I come over with my this one, you can actually see the torpidity going up slowly. So there is still an initial burst, follow up with a sort of like a DOT torpidity going up, and about after 4 seconds it start going back down. Next we have the shotgun. Now this one only holds 2 shots, and it does 64 damage per pellet, and it holds 10 pellets, which means it can go up to 640 damage in total. However, the spread is really big, so therefore, just like any other shotgun, the closer you are to the enemy, the higher the damage, and the further away you are, the more miss you might get, because the pellets might not hit. So let me give you a rough idea. Let me gamma up real quick so you can see, and let me take out my shotgun. Okay, so there are 2 bullets. If I go really far back, you see only 3 of the pellets hit and did 22 each. If I go really close, right, then more of the pellets hit, and then we do an overall more damage in close range than in far range. So this is how it works. Reloading time, it's somewhat decent. It's not as long as the long neck in my opinion, but because of the spread, you do need or require to be really close to the target. Otherwise, this gun is actually not that good. Now, one question I have is that if I were to aim down sight, does that actually improve the ability of hitting with more pellets? So if right now over here, I shoot and only 2 shots hit, okay, now maybe 3 shots, so about 2 to 3 shots hit. What happens if I were to aim down sight? Does that help? Only 1 hit, 4 hit, right? I don't know. I feel like it does. But then again, look, it's also a lot of luck involved. So it's hard to tell, because from so far, the experiment has always been about you know, 3 to 4. Now next we have a fabricated pistol that does 50 damage. If you look over here, the simple pistol does more damage, 100, which is double the damage of a fabricated pistol. But the fabricated pistol has more rounds. It has up to 13 rounds, so you can keep shooting 13 times, and I believe it's slightly faster than the simple pistol as well. So if you think about the condition that we were talking about, like with the Trudons, the fabricated pistol is actually a better choice because you can switch between targets. The fabricated pistol allows a little bit more flexibility in that sense. However, if you look at the damage per resource, the simple pistol is better. However, I feel like the fabricated pistol does reload a little bit faster, so overall DPS, maybe the fabricated pistol might actually win, considering that I think it shoots twice as fast as a simple pistol. So let's give it a try and see if we can come up with some form of conclusion. Let's put this in over here. Okay, so this is the simple pistol. Okay, 6 shots. And let's take a look at the fabricated pistol. 13 shots. So yeah, it does feel like it's probably twice as fast as the simple pistol. However, it gives you that flexibility. Now in my opinion, I feel like fast shooting weapons are good against dinos, especially when there's a lot. But slow weapons like the long neck, like the simple pistol, is actually somewhat good against players as well. Because normally when you're fighting against a player, especially when you don't know how many there are, you kind of want to shoot and take cover and then shoot again, you know, maybe relocate and then shoot again. Things like that will actually confuse the opponent and also make them harder to track you. Or else if you have a fast firing weapon and you have to stay still and keep shooting, then you're actually putting yourself out there, making yourself a target for people to shoot you. But a lot depends on the total damage output that you can do and if it's worth standing still for that damage. Anyways, next we're going to talk about the pump action shotgun, and this is probably the most damaging weapon in close range. So the compound bow, in my opinion, is probably one of the most damaging weapon in long range. This is probably going to be the most damaging weapon in close range. If they both, you know, did really well in what they do and they hit all their shots, the pump action shotgun is probably going to be more damaging than the compound bow. So over here, let's pull out our pump action. Okay, it holds 6 clips, and you can see that the crosshair is actually smaller than the previous shotgun. So this one is like super big. So the spread is probably really big as well, whilst the pump action is a lot smaller, and when you aim down sight it's even smaller. So let's see if we can get all the numbers. Not too bad. It seems like you see this red dot here, it's one of the pellets, but we're aiming here, so it kind of went out of the crosshair, but you do get a lot more hits, whilst this one only 4 out of 10. Another thing to take note is that the the pump action shotgun shoots out 14 pellets instead of 10, right? So I guess in a weird way you can say that there's more chances of hitting per pellet, but I guess this also means that per pellet the damage is actually lower than the shotgun. But the pump action, if you go close enough, you can get all 14 similar to the shotgun. However, I do think that the shotgun is actually harder to get everything in. You have to go a lot closer than the pump action. And the added benefit with the pump action is that it shoots a lot faster. So if I were to shoot, and you have 6 shots of this, so it's really good. Another really good benefit of the pump action is that you can put attachment on it. You can have the light on if you want to, like that, which in my opinion I feel like it's really not necessary, considering there is this gamma up thing where you can basically change. So when night comes, just do this and everything becomes clear, you know. So when day comes, just do this. So the light attachment, in my opinion, is probably the most useful, the most useless one. Other attachments they can put in is a scope, which is very interesting. And what I really want to know is that, does it help with the spread, right? So now I'm just assuming, but if this helps, then probably it also helps with the normal shotgun. Now when you scope, you actually see the crosshair moving. I'm not moving my mouse, it's just naturally moving. If you are crouching, the movement is supposedly lessened, and if you are lying down, it should actually be even lesser, right? Okay, so this is how the game works. So let's see if we can get most of the pellets in. Oh, it seems like it works. So we are really far away, but when we use a scope, it seems like a lot of the pellets actually hits him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is not bad. So if aiming downside actually makes the spread lesser, then yeah, maybe you want to consider using a scope on a pump action shotgun. Another one you can use is this one, which basically shows you if you're aiming at a structure, if you're aiming at a creature. They have different color coding, and if it's a enemy, it's red. So yeah, so the moment you see red, you shoot, kind of thing, which is also not too bad. There's also a little bit of a buff in terms of the scope, so you can also aim a little bit further. And I think the movement is not as bad as the scope. Let's see. I'm not really sure, can't really tell, but I think, yeah, I think it feels a little bit lesser than the scope. Now, however, the pump action shotgun, you do need a fabricator to get. You need level 55 at least for the engrams, but I do think that it's a really good gun to have. And in terms of damage efficiency versus resources, it's actually better than the shotgun as well, simply because they're using the same types of bullet, and this one just does a little bit more extra damage. So it's a little bit better than the shotgun in terms of efficiency. Next, we come to the assault rifle. So the assault rifle uses advanced bullet, which in my opinion is not that cheap to craft. Therefore, you can actually see the damage per resource is actually really low. This means that you're spending a lot of resource just to get the damage out. The damage per bullet is only 47. However, being an assault rifle, it fires a lot quicker. So let me show you how fast it is. So over here, let's put it on. Okay, let's have a first person view. So it goes something like this, right? You can actually see the number coming out like a spread. And from my understanding of the game is that if you were to shoot here, right, the damage value will pop out here. If I were to shoot here, the damage value pop out here. So by holding down and seeing how the numbers is being spread out, it also tells you how the bullet is actually being spread out. So it's not constantly shooting at one spot. It actually moves around due to the recoil, which I guess it makes sense because, you know, guns has recoil. But the problem is, this means that if you were to hold down, you are less accurate. So although I feel like this one has really good DPS, it's not going to be good for, you know, long range fights, because your bullet's going to go everywhere, right, as you experience the recoil. So in my opinion, this is actually one of the most expensive and also not so good guns to have in ARK. I feel like guns that gives you more accuracy, like for example, the simple pistol has such a good accuracy, and the long neck, these things with 100% accuracy is so much more valuable in ARK than something like the fabricated assault rifle. I don't think there's a fabricated word there. Yeah, just assault rifle. So in my opinion, I wouldn't have this gun. I feel like this gun is really just for the funsies. And in a weird way, you do need to go really close to target in order to get most of the bullets to hit. So therefore, might as well use a pump action shotgun, in my opinion. Like, that might actually be better than using a assault rifle. Okay, finally we have the fabricated sniper rifle. Now this weapon is costly. The efficiency is not as good as the long neck. However, the damage output is a lot. So yes, in my opinion, this is better than the long neck because of how fast it can shoot and how fast it can reload. The total amount of damage that you could potentially put out is way better than the long neck. The only problem with this weapon is that it always has a scope. You can't not scope, right? Because it's a sniper rifle. And what this means is that if you were to use, let's say, a long neck, right? Let's say you were to use a long neck. So basically you have the option to not put on the scope with the long neck, and you can still kind of zoom in without that whole breathing motion thing where it moves your Corsair. So it's very steady and you can shoot with the long neck in this way. However, with a fabricated sniper, where is it? There you go. With a fabricated sniper, you don't have that option. You either have this view or you have this view where it moves a lot, right? So if you don't want it to move, you have to prune and lie on the ground, which it still moves, but it doesn't move as much. And then this means that if you want to scope, you have to be in this position. Otherwise, you are going to have a tough time aiming. However, what really stands out is the fact that it can shoot really fast. Now, if it's close enough, you can actually shoot like this and you get 100% accuracy as well. So you can go like this, right? It's super good. And the speed of it reloading is also very, very fast. Let me show you. So let's say I shoot, right? When I reload, that's it. Pull it, there you go. So it's faster than the long neck in terms of reload. The shooting is also way faster than a long neck. So potential damage output is a lot better. It also gives you room for error because you can shoot multiple times, and it gives you that flexibility that we talk about. So yeah, this weapon, super good. It also works with a lot of attachments besides the scope, of course. So you can put something like, which I think that you probably want to, the silencer on. So you can shoot something from a distance without them knowing where it came from, right? It's just so good. In my opinion, I think I would prefer the sniper rifle over the compound bow, simply because I'm bad at judging the distance, and I feel like you always end up wasting 1 or 2 arrows just to find the sweet spot. And if the target were to move and then you have to re-find that sweet spot, it's always a bit of a trouble, and it's going to cost resources as well because you're losing metal arrows. Now, we do have the rocket launcher as well, but we're not going to talk about it because I feel like the rocket launcher is more for structures. It's more like a C4, it's more like a grenade, and you can hurt yourself with a rocket launcher. It's not really that good versus players or even killing animals, especially if they're moving around, because when they move around, the rocket launcher is one of the most traveling time required for its projectile. So it's easily run away from, especially if the target has really high movement speed, and which most players does kind of have in PvP mode. So we're not going to talk about the rockets, and simply because it's also not in the list. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are going to talk about the attachments. Okay, so there are these attachments that I have here. One is a torchlight. One kind of helps you to differentiate between friendly and foe and structures. Another one helps you to, I don't know, put a dot at where you're aiming, which in my opinion is kind of useless unless you want the enemy to know that you are aiming at them. And then we have a scope, which I guess allows you to see clearer at a further distance. And then of course you have a silencer, which makes your weapon has less sound. And another good thing about silencer is that according to the wiki that I've read, it actually makes the player not be able to tell where the bullet came from. So by using a weapon with a silencer, the enemy can only like run, because there's so many directions a bullet can come from, and they probably don't know. They wouldn't know if you're having a silencer on. So this is one of the really good PvP attachments to have. Okay, so my thoughts are that the torchlight is pretty much useless. So if I were to have this, right, and I turn on my torchlight, in the day it's useless because you can't see anything, right? It's almost nothing. And a thing about the game is that you have the gamma up and gamma down button, right? So it allows you to actually make things, the whole thing brighter if you go into a dark cave or dark place. So therefore rendering this torch useless. So this torch, don't use it. Okay, don't craft it, don't even pick it up. The next thing that we are going to talk about, now the next one is this hollow scope attachment, and it's not bad. Let me just put it on first. Okay, we'll put it on the pistol. Okay, fabricated pistol. Now this one is not too bad because I guess in a way you can just shoot the moment you see it turning red, right? But however, in my opinion, I feel like it's not really that necessary. There's already names on top of each thing. I feel like it already helps you identify if it's an enemy, if it's friendly, and if you can aim at a structure and not know that you're aiming at the structure, it's also kind of weird, I guess, unless maybe your distance view is really short and you can actually see players or creatures behind a stone that has not rendered into a view. Then this might actually come in handy because, oh, you see it's yellow, you know that, oh, maybe there's something obstructing even though you are pointing at a particular target. So yeah, maybe this is kind of good in that sense. The whole green color with the sort of like night vision feel to it, I don't really like. I feel like it doesn't really help much. It makes the whole thing green. The contrast is messed up, and there are this brackety thing around the crosshair, which if the enemy is far enough, those things can actually be a obstruction instead of something that helps you aim, right? Another thing that I realized is that you notice that the crosshair is moving as well, so it does have that whole breathing problem issue where it moves around, so that is not very good. Okay, so in my opinion, I don't like the hollow scope as well. So this is something that I probably wouldn't use, but if you want to, because you have trouble differentiating what is what, then yeah, sure, go ahead. Now the next one is by far one of the most useless one in my opinion, is the one with a laser pointer. So what this does is that it shows you where you're pointing at. So if I were to, oopsie, sorry, no, stay. Okay. So if I were to turn on the laser pointer, so you can see right now at my crosshair, there is a red dot. And that is pretty much it. So I guess this could be good for, I don't know, scaring people, like that you can walk up to them and say like, I'm here and I brought friends, and all your friends just kind of turn on the laser pointer and point at him, and you see multiple dots on him and he gets scared, right? Maybe the purpose is to be intimidating, but in most cases you don't really want people to know your location. You don't want people to know that you're aiming at them, where you're aiming. So yeah, I feel like it's not a very good thing to have. So in my opinion, this no good. I don't want it. Okay, now let's talk about the last two attachments, which is a scope, right, and also a silencer. Now, interesting thing with the scope is that for most of the weapons that you put on with a scope, you have that breathing movement thing where it sways around. But if you put it on the pistol, if you put it on simple pistol, it does not, making the simple pistol one of the really good sniping weapons because you can get 100% accuracy and a little bit better range in terms of view. So yeah, this is really good. Now, I'm not too sure if it works with a fabricated pistol. Let's try that as well. But for the most weapons, it will actually have that swaying motion. Let's try the fabricated pistol. Okay, it doesn't move as well with the fabricated pistol. My guess, the logic here is maybe pistols are really small. It's not as close to you, to your body, so it's not affected by your breathing, maybe. So yeah, because of that, I feel like the scope has its uses and it's really good for pistol type weapons. The next and last attachment is going to be the silencer, and I feel like the silencer is just one of the best PvP weapons out there. So the reason why is because when you shoot a target, it doesn't know where the bullet come from. However, it doesn't work on neutrals. So if it's a dinosaur, when you shoot it, it'll still run towards you. It acts exactly the same. The difference is that there's no sound, so it's quiet. The other difference is that for certain guns, according to what I read in the wiki, is that some guns after firing, there's like this smoke, and then with the silencer, it will actually reduce the smoke, so you don't see the smoke. But other than that, having a silencer is just so good, because if you know where the enemy is shooting from, you can shoot back. If you know where the enemy is shooting from, you can easily take cover with even just one wall. But if you don't know where the enemy is from, you have to run. And by running, it allows you to even shoot even more. And yeah, some people, they are just slow. So the moment they get shot, the first thing they do instead of taking cover is they'll try to locate where did I get shot from. And that just exposes them to getting shot even more. So yeah, in my opinion, the silencer is hands down one of the best PvP attachment that you should have. Okay, so just a summary or some finishing thoughts on what weapon I would use personally and what I think is better to have on you. So the first one is definitely going to be the crossbow. So you want to get rid of your slingshot, your bow as fast as you can and get one of these. Now the crossbow is just so good because you can use the grappler on it. You can, I mean by grappler I mean the grappling hook on it. You can shoot underwater, you can put tranq arrows on it so that you can tame stuff. It's just so well-rounded and so useful that you must have. There's no other weapon that allows you to use a grappling hook, and the only other weapon that you can use to shoot underwater is probably the harpoon. Now the second weapon that is relatively cheap that I'll probably consider getting is the pistol. Now with the pistol, I'll probably put on a scope attachment on it so that I can see far. At the same time, there's no breathing movement, so I can actually use this to snipe. Really good thing about the pistol is that, or really good thing about all the weapons in Ark, is that they don't have damage fall off. Damage fall off is where if you know the target is really far, and by trying to shoot the target at a really far away distance, the bullet actually experiences like resistance due to the air, and then it slows down, so therefore the impact damage is lowered. But it doesn't seem to have that in Ark. If you do 80 damage in close range, you're going to do 80 damage in far range. So you can actually use this to snipe and still do a really good amount of damage. And if it comes closer, you can even switch over to a crossbow, because at really far range, you don't really want to use arrows due to the curvature. Now, with the extra bullet that you have made, which is called simple pistol bullet, I think. Wait, let me check. It's called, yeah, simple bullet. If you have extra simple bullet in the future, you can actually use them to make shotgun shells. So the shotgun bullets that you use, and you can use it on a shotgun. So there's really not much of a waste in having a simple pistol, simply because if you don't use them in the future, you can convert all their bullets into shotgun shells, and maybe you use shotgun instead. Now the third weapon that I'll probably be getting is going to be the long neck. Now the reason why is because it has the ability to use all kinds of darts, not just the tranq darts, but poison, the shock darts, and all those other things. So it's really, really good. It has one of the highest damage per shot, and also it has a really good efficiency, damage to resource efficiency. Now after that, I will probably consider a palm shotgun, okay, because there will be cases where enemies or dinos comes really close to you, and in those situations, when they are really close, they can be in front of you and be at side of you really quickly. So aiming them accurately is going to be a tough thing to do. With a shotgun, is a lot easier because the damage comes out as a spread, so chances of you hitting is a lot higher. On top of that, this one does have a faster shooting rate, firing rate than the double barrel shotgun. So the path I'm probably gonna go to is that first we're gonna use the crossbow for most of things. Then after that, we'll have a simple pistol, which we're gonna use kind of for close range and maybe long range sniping, just to trigger something to come closer or something like that. And then after that, we're gonna get a long neck for the long range. And then after that, we will probably substitute the simple pistol for the palm shotgun. So therefore, we are rocking with the crossbow for utility, we have the shotgun for close range and the long neck for long range. And then when I have enough money and I become really rich, I'll switch the long neck for a fabricated sniper rifle. So that is the path that I'm going for. And the rest, especially with the fabricated, although they are sort of like mentioned here, but I'm probably not gonna get the compound bow and also the fabricated pistol. Let me know what are your thoughts down in the comments. If you think that there's something that I missed, something really good about compound bow that I didn't think of, yeah, let me know down in the comments, because I do want to point out that most of the things that I've talked about is mostly theory crafting based on my understanding, based on what I read in wiki, but there are still a lot of things that you might know due to your experience. So let me know, teach me down in the comments. Looking forward to it. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.